There's a few phrases in dating that probably have done more damage than almost anything else. Just be yourself. I just want to be authentic. I don't want to play games. Most of the time, when a struggling man says that, what he really means is something very different. What he usually means is this: I don't want to do hard things. I don't want to face rejection. I don't want to learn better social skills. I don't want to practice conversation. I don't want to risk looking awkward. I don't want to improve. I want to stay exactly where I am and still get the women I want. That's what a lot of men are really saying when they hide behind authenticity. It sounds noble, mature, even principled, but it's just fear wearing a nicer outfit. And here's why it matters so much. If you can't actually carry a strong, attractive, emotionally engaging conversation, you're never really going to consistently date the women you really want, period. You can cope, you can rationalize, you can talk about chemistry and alignment and being understood, and none of that matters in real life if you don't know how to walk into a room, connect with strangers, create momentum, and make people feel something when they interact with you. So in this episode, I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to break down why this Mark Manson post misses the mark for the men who are most likely to hear it and misuse it. And second, if you stay with me until the end, I'm going to give you one very simple but profound exercise that's going to do more for your ability to become magnetic, charismatic, charming, and naturally great in conversation than studying 100 conversation tips ever will. In fact, once you start doing this, you'll not really need to even study any conversation technique because the right instincts will start coming out of you completely naturally. So that's the real promise. Not just a criticizing post, showing you how to become the kind of man whose conversations actually pull people in. You're listening to the Inner Confidence Podcast. My name is Robbie Kramer. I've been a coach since 2007, and I've helped countless men rapidly achieve all of their social and dating goals. My mission is simple: to help you position yourself to meet stunning women, make awesome friends, en route to becoming the most confident and attractive version you can possibly be. I'm absolutely obsessed with giving you the most leveraged ways possible to win the game, so stick around, let's go. Now, before I critique Mark, let me say something clearly. I have a ton of respect for him. I tell guys in my community to read his books. Models is the first one, and then The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and the last one, Everything is Fucked, are all on my required reading list for a reason. He's a brilliant writer. He's an amazing coach. He's helped a lot of people, myself included. And this is not me taking a cheap shot at some random guy in line. This is me saying that even very smart people can still put out advice that sounds deep but gives the wrong audience permission to stay weak. And that's exactly what I think this post kind of does. The basic message is simple. Be yourself early. Front load your weird, he says. The right woman will stay. And on the surface, that sounds beautiful. It sounds romantic, healthy. It sounds like something a healed person would say. And for a small category of men, there is truth in that. But for the majority of men who struggle in dating, this advice is not just incomplete, it's dangerous, because the men who are not doing well with women do not hear that and think, great, I'll reveal my personality in a grounded, calibrated way once attraction's there. No. They hear something much lazier. They hear, great, I don't need to improve. I don't need reps. I don't need better social skills. I don't need to learn how to approach. I don't need to be more comfortable in conversation. I don't need to build confidence. I just need to find some girl who accepts my weirdness. And this is where men destroy themselves, because the average guy struggling is not hiding some sexy, magnetic weirdness. He's hiding tension. He's hiding social anxiety. He's hiding fear of rejection, overinvestment, and he's hiding a complete lack of experience. So when that guy decides to be authentic, what usually comes out is not charm. It's pressure, awkwardness, oversharing, trying too hard to be unique or whatever. It's forcing depth before attraction exists. And it's emotional leakage, which kind of sounds like anal leakage, but maybe even worse. That is not authenticity in any useful sense. That is unrefined insecurity being dumped onto another person. And then the guy feels righteous about it because he tells himself at least he was being real. Nope, you were sabotaging yourself and calling it truth. And this is some of the biggest traps I see with clients. A lot of men use authenticity as a moral excuse to avoid development. They don't want to practice. They don't want to practice conversation or do hard social exercises. They don't want to risk embarrassment. They don't want to get rejected enough times that they actually become genuinely free. So instead, they cling to this fantasy that the right girl will just magically appreciate them exactly as they are right now. And that fantasy is comforting. It's also complete bullshit. And that is why this post bothered me. Not because there is zero truth in it. There is truth in it, but because it gives the wrong man an out. It gives the guy who should be doing the hard work permission to either do nothing or do something self-sabotaging and call it authenticity. So let's talk about what Mark actually said. He tells a story about meeting his wife in Brazil at 3 a.m. in a nightclub and basically going full linguistics nerd almost immediately. And his point is that it was the filter. Anybody turned off by that was never the right fit anyway. Again, I understand the principle. Don't build relationships on a fake personality. Don't hide who you are for 6 months and then reveal the truth once somebody's attached. That part I agree with. But the reason this misses the mark is because it leaves out the most important part. Who can pull that off? In what environment? After how many reps? From what emotional state? With what level of abundance? Because when you leave that out, average men hear a beautiful slogan and use it to skip the work that would actually make authenticity attractive in the first place, which is the whole issue. And there's another layer also. Mark and I actually exchanged blog posts back around 2009. He ran a blog called Post Masculine. I ran Robbo's flirting blog. So I'm not looking at this as some random outsider reacting to an Instagram post. I know the era. I know how a lot of us dating coaches evolved. And one thing that used to happen all the time is this. A guy would go out, get a ton of reps, often in nightlife, often in favorable environments, often with years of mistakes and trial and error behind him. Then later, he would package the lesson into one elegant sounding principle. That principle would then get fed to men who had none of the prerequisites. And that's how bad advice spreads. A guy who has already built confidence can say, just be yourself, and it sounds deep. But a guy with no confidence hears it and uses it as a license to stay mediocre. A guy who's already built abundance can say, front load your weird, and it sounds brave. A guy who's had plenty of women can relax and be polarizing. A guy who has barely had any women gets attached to the first one who gives him a chance, and he mistakes relief for compatibility. And this is where the advice becomes genuinely dangerous, because it's not just about whether you get a date or not, it's about how men choose women. A man with few options will often massively overvalue the first attractive girl who seems to accept him. He thinks, finally, somebody sees me, somebody gets me. This must mean she's special. This must mean she's my person. No, sometimes she's just the first woman who stayed. The first woman who accepts your weirdness is not automatically your person. Sometimes she's just the first woman who made you feel relief. And men who choose from relief often call it fate because they don't want to admit that they chose from scarcity. That's how guys end up in relationships that looked amazing at first because they felt seen, but later the whole thing starts collapsing. Attraction erodes, polarity can die, respect gets weird, sex gets stale, and the guy loses his frame. The woman sees that he chose her from need instead of strength, and then 5 years later, everyone's confused because he never chose from abundance, he chose from relief. So no, the lesson is not wife up the first hot girl who tolerates your quirks. That's a disaster strategy. And let's also not ignore the missing context in Mark's story. He was in Brazil at 3 a.m. in a nightclub as a foreigner. That's not normal life. That's not some guy going on a first hinge date at 6:30 at some coffee place in the suburbs. Your environment matters a lot. The novelty matters. Nightlife matters. Being a foreigner matters. The same exact conversation in a nightclub at 3 a.m. lands differently than it does over coffee in the afternoon. The same exact weirdness that feels intriguing in a fun environment can feel awkward and socially expensive in a flat, lower energy environment. So part of what makes this advice dangerous is that people copy the visible move and ignore the invisible support structure. They copy the weirdness or the anecdote, they copy the line, but they don't have the environment, they don't have the social momentum, and they don't have the reps. They don't have the nervous system regulation. They don't have the options, and then they get wrecked by their own imitation. This is advanced advice sold to beginners. And the deeper issue is this. The same exact behavior coming from two different men lands totally differently. One guy says something weird and it feels playful, free, and intriguing. Another guy says the exact same thing and it feels heavy, needy, off, socially expensive, you could say. Because women are not just reacting to the content. They're reacting to the emotional weight underneath it. They're reacting to whether it feels like self-expression or whether it feels like a subtle demand. Weirdness with abundance feels free. Weirdness with scarcity feels heavy. And most men with few options don't use authenticity as a filter. They use it as a hope strategy. A guy with options is saying, this is me, take it or leave it. But a guy with no options is saying, please let this be enough. Please let this work. Please let you be the one who finally accepts me. And women feel the difference instantly. This is also why a lot of traditional dating advice misses the point from the other direction too. On one side, you get romantic nonsense like just be yourself. And on the other side, you get overly tactical dating advice. Use this opener, say this line, tease, qualify, touch at this moment, tell this story, run this sequence. That stuff can help a little at certain stages, but for most men, it puts them too far in their head. So now they're stuck between two bad options: either hide behind authenticity and never grow, or memorize tactics and become weirdly robotic. And both paths suck. The real path is different. You need to become a great conversationalist. You need to become socially free. You need to become the kind of man who can walk into a room full of strangers and connect with people. Because once that happens, all the things dating coaches talk about as tactics start happening naturally. You tease naturally, you qualify naturally, you tell stories naturally, you challenge, you create men to women energy. You become more expressive, more relaxed, more observed, bold, calibrated. You say what other people are afraid to say, you feel and you read the room, and you stop trying to do game. You actually become good with people, and that's the real path. And that is the part that most people don't talk about. Most guys do not need another dating tactic. They need a way to get out of their own head and into a social frame of mind. Because if you walk into a venue and your whole focus is beautiful women, pickup, outcome, rejection, trying to get numbers, trying not to look stupid, trying to make something happen, you're already cooked. Your nervous system is in threat mode. Everything narrows, your body gets tight, your mind starts scanning the room like a prey animal, like looking for a predator. You start bargaining with yourself. Maybe I'll do it later. I'll go talk to her after another drink. If I get eye contact, I'll talk to her. Maybe if I see the perfect moment, then you do nothing. Or you force yourself into one awkward approach, which is going to go badly. And now you have a story about why this whole approaching thing is not for you. That's really how most guys live. And that is why most guys never get good. So what should you do instead? Well, this is one of the most profound exercises a man can ever do. Literally, it is life-changing. Pick a venue, ideally one that attractive women frequent, but it really can be any venue, so don't let that stop you. And I want you to go there and literally talk to everybody. Men, women, old people, young people, the bartender, the doorman, the weird guy by himself, couple by the bar, group of dudes, random girl in line. I mean everybody. Your only goal is to talk to as many people as possible. Literally talk to everyone. I want you to be polite, and I want you to do your best to be calibrated. Like, don't be annoying, don't be intrusive or be weird. That's it. You're not sharking around. You're not stalking the best set. You're not building up pressure around female beauty. You're flooding the venue with social energy. You're teaching your nervous system that the room is safe. You're proving to yourself that these are just people. They're not threats. They're not judges. They're not mythical creatures. They're just people. And here's the crucial part that most guys screw up. After each approach, you got to give yourself credit. Like, seriously, give yourself props. Do not obsess over what you said wrong. Do not go neurotic post-mortem after every interaction. Focus on the fact that you had the balls to do an insanely difficult exercise that almost nobody will ever do. That matters. You need to reinforce the behavior. However you want to do it. You can pat yourself in the back and say, good job, hell yeah, good work. Then go on to the next one. Not a lot of time in between. Because if all you ever do is punish yourself mentally, you'll never build any momentum. You have to train your psychology the right way. And I've done this many, many times during my journey. At a certain point, it almost became my default way of going out. I just start talking to everyone when I got there. And what changed everything was this. Once I got out of my head and into a true social state, my anxiety disappeared. And when my anxiety disappeared, my inner social genius came out, I like to say. I was naturally doing all the things dating coaches talked about as tactics, like teasing, qualifying, storytelling. I was displaying higher value, THVing, as they say. I was challenging. I was creating man to women energy. I was socially calibrated. I was saying what everyone else was afraid to say. I was making friends everywhere. I was naturally meeting women and taking them home. But none of that could have happened if I was lurking around a venue, overthinking beautiful women and trying to pick them up. That mindset kills your magic. And you cannot be creative when your nervous system thinks you're under attack, when your whole body is braced for rejection, when you're stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. And that's why this exercise is so powerful, because it hacks your psychology and your unconscious. And once your unconscious understands that everyone in the venue is safe, the socially brilliant part of your brain totally unlocks. You stop acting like a prey animal in that threat environment, and you start acting like the host of the party with all your best friends and family there. And that's a totally different frequency. It almost feels like being high on MDMA. Not that I know anything about that, but much cleaner and self-generated. You feel open, warm, creative, fearless, connected. And the craziest part is that once you feel that state a few times, you realize it was inside of you the whole time. The problem was not that you needed more lines. The problem was that your access to your best self was blocked by your anxiety. And this is especially important for guys who identify as introverts. A lot of introverted men are not actually bad socially. They're just slow to warm up and too locked in their heads at the beginning. So they judge themselves based on the worst 15 minutes of their night. And that's stupid. You have no idea who you are socially until you're warmed up. And the fastest way to warm up is to stop making every interaction mean so much. Talk to everybody, build volume, build momentum, get in state, and then watch what happens. This is also why I push my guys in the community to do this kind of work all of the time, because almost nobody will ever do it on their own. But the guys who actually do things and they do this exercise, they change super fast. Their social skills explode. Their confidence explodes. Their ability to connect explodes. Their ability to meet women explodes. They start making friends everywhere. They become networking beasts. They become the kind of men who can walk into any venue in any city, in really any social scene, and create momentum out of thin air. That's the real power. And ironically, that's what eventually allows you to do what Mark is talking about. Because once you have that level of social freedom, once you have reps, once you have state control, once you have options, once you're no longer outcome dependent, then yes, absolutely, front load some weirdness. Then yes, absolutely, be more bold, more real, be polarizing. And then yes, authenticity becomes attractive because it's now carried by ease instead of need. But that is earned. That's not step one. That's the part that people leave out. So if you're a guy with few options, here's the real lesson. Do not use authenticity as an excuse to skip the work. Do not use being yourself as a cope for staying socially unskilled. Don't use weirdness as a substitute for confidence. Don't use vulnerability as a substitute for value. Build the foundation, become socially free, become a great conversationalist, learn how to enter a room and connect with everyone, learn how to get yourself into a state where your best traits actually come out. Then your authenticity stops being a gamble. It becomes an advantage. Then your weirdness stops feeling heavy. It feels magnetic. And then your honesty stops feeling like pressure. It feels refreshing. Your personality stops being something you're begging people to accept. It becomes something they're lucky to experience. And really, that's the order. And if you get that order wrong, you're going to create a lot of unnecessary pain for yourself. You're going to overshare with women who have not earned access to you. You're going to overvalue women who merely tolerate you. You're going to mistake relief for compatibility. You're going to choose from scarcity and then wonder why you feel trapped later. So don't do that. The answer is not to become fake. The answer is to become strong enough, free enough, and socially skilled enough that the real you actually lands. That's the game. So no, I do not agree with the simplistic version of just go up and be weird. Most guys will not go up at all. And if they do, they will do it from so much pressure and anxiety that it will go horribly, and then they're probably going to quit. What works is very different. Go out, pick a venue, talk to everyone, get into state, teach your nervous system that the room is safe, give yourself props for every rep, let your inner conversationalist come out, and it will come out. You'll be shocked how amazingly brilliant you are once the anxiety is gone. And once that part of you is online, all the other things people obsess over as tactics will start happening naturally. That's the fun path. That is a repeatable path, and that's the path that actually gives you the ability to be unapologetically yourself without sabotaging your dating life. And here's the truth. Most men will never do this on their own. They'll agree with everything I said. They will think it sounds smart. They'll tell themselves they should try it sometime. And then they're going to go back to overthinking, hesitating, hiding behind authenticity, and doing nothing. That is why community matters. That's why coaching matters. And that's why putting yourself around other men who are actually doing the work matters. Inside my community, this is not just some cool concept guys hear once and forget. It's an actual exercise I give them. They go out and they do it, sometimes together. They report back. They build momentum. They get pushed through the resistance. And for a lot of them, it changes everything very quickly, because once you do this for real, your social anxiety drops. Your conversational ability goes through the roof. You stop trying to memorize attraction tactics. You stop needing canned lines. You stop hoping some women will magically appreciate your weirdness. And you become the kind of man who can walk into almost any room, connect with almost anyone, and naturally create attraction. And that's a totally different life. So if you're listening to this and you know the truth is that you're still too much in your head, too outcome dependent, too hesitant, too socially tight, and you want help actually becoming this guy instead of just understanding the theory, go check out the Inner Confidence community, because this is exactly the kind of thing that we work on. not fake lines, not performative confidence, not hiding behind just be yourself. Real reps, exercises, accountability, feedback, and real transformation. If that sounds like something you need, hit the link, fill out the application. We will see if it's a fit on a call. Because the goal is not to keep consuming content about confidence. The goal is to become a man who actually has it. Out of all the guys I know, the only ones who managed to consistently win the game are those who built and invested in a high-status social circle. You can certainly approach women and try your luck on the apps if you're a Chad, but those strategies simply don't work consistently to attract top-tier women and awesome friends into your life. But for most guys, the idea of building a social circle can feel overwhelming, so they continue to hunt for women in their usual ways and end up settling for a girl they were never really that excited about in the first place. To avoid this fate, join our community and instantly plug into a highly vetted social circle of cool dudes to network and navigate your journey with. You already know it's hard to find wingmen because the good ones don't stay in the game very long. Many of our members travel together, end up living together, build amazing circles, and even businesses together, both in the West and in many of the best locations around the globe with gorgeous women and low cost of living. I'm extremely careful who I let into this community, but if you feel like you'd make a good fit, you can apply to join. The link's in the description.